Hello my friends, I'm Peter with Never 6%, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of tiny homes. So tiny homes, there are lower costs. They range in prices between $30,000 to $100,000, probably including the land as well, versus the average home in America now to construct is around $350,000, and on a nationwide average, a home built with land and everything is close to $500,000. So this is really out of reach of a lot of people's pockets. The average American dream is going away. It's just gotten so expensive just to buy a single family home in this country. So there are alternatives, and tiny homes is just one of them. So the good thing about a tiny home is lower utility bills, property taxes and maintenance costs, sustainable living, meaning you have a smaller carbon footprint, which is a great thing. Easier to integrate solar panels, and if you want to make your tiny home off-grid, that's also an option as well, which makes it so much nicer. So these are all good attributes to owning a tiny home. Great thing about a tiny home is faster build time compared to your regular traditional home. Tiny homes can be built between 3 to 6 months on the average. Faster path to ownership, less debt, which is a great thing. So if you need to move quick and you want to build something fast, a tiny home could be the solution. With the tiny home, you're going to have the freedom and flexibility. Some tiny homes are mobile and they can be moved to new locations. So maybe you have some property and you want to put up a tiny home or move it. It can easily be done depending on the design, which is great. It can be used for rental income property, which is a great thing for investors. Or if you need to get a guest house in the backyard for your family members or a college student, tiny homes can also do that as well. So they're very diverse with the usage and what you can do with them. So yeah, the other great thing about a tiny home is the simplicity and decluttering. The average American usually has their garage filled with a lot of crap. There's a lot of things around the house that are not used, that are just there. I can speak for myself. I've had that problem that I just collect stuff. So having a tiny home, you have to really pick and choose what's important to have in your house because you have a limited amount of space. Okay, so the zoning and legal restrictions of a tiny home. So you want to buy a piece of property and build on it. The city or the county might require a minimum amount of square footage that you can build. So if the tiny home is 200-300 square feet and you need a minimum of at least 800 square feet, then it's really not a tiny house anymore and you won't be able to get that permitted. So double check the property that you're buying, that you can actually build a small structure or put a mobile tiny home or something on the property. Very important. So with a tiny home, you have limited space, and that's a drawback, obviously. You're gonna have to share this space. That can strain a relationship if you're with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or you're married, or you have kids. So take that in consideration about the limited amount of space that you have. It's probably a better idea to rent one if you can and try it out for a week or so to see if you really like a tiny home. So with tiny homes, there's probably financial difficulties, and what I mean by that, most banks won't lend on these tiny homes. They won't give you a traditional mortgage on a tiny home because it's just not worth it to them. You know, something that's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000, most banks want to lend on a minimum of $150,000. So this is going to come to your personal money, getting a hard money loan, private lending, in order to fund this type of project. And that leads me to the other part of a tiny home, the cons, is that, you know, you're gonna have a resale challenge. You might have the tiny home for a few years, get tired of it, and then you wanna go ahead and sell it. Well, the resale, you're gonna have a sliver or a small pool of buyers that are actually interested in a tiny home. Not everybody wants one. So you're gonna have a certain market for this tiny home. And the resale is a lot different from a regular traditional home as we know it. Mobile units that can be moved around, as I talked about in this video, those depreciate in value as well. So take that in consideration. It's like a vehicle. You're gonna buy a vehicle and you're gonna drive it off the parking lot and it's gonna go down in value, it's gonna depreciate. Well, these mobile tiny homes that you can, you know, transfer from one piece of property to the next, they also depreciate like a vehicle. So that's one thing you need to take in consideration. It's not like your regular traditional home that's made out of block that's going to go up in value. So, and again, there's a certain audience that's willing to pay for these homes, and it's a special, unique situation. So take that in consideration when building these homes. These tiny homes are not always cheaper. You got to run the numbers. Think about this. You're going to be buying the land. You're going to have to get impact fees. You're going to have to clear the land. That's going to take money. Plus, you're going to build the tiny home, and you might want to customize it. So your customized tiny home with permits and everything, etc., could cost, over $100,000. It could go over budget. So it might not even be worth to build the tiny home on that property because the land is worth so much more, and it's better just to spend a little more money to get a regular traditional home on the property. And it's also for resale value as well. So, you got to run the numbers and the ratios to see exactly what you're doing, because it might not make sense to build a tiny home in some locations, even though they're permitted for this. So always remember that as well. Run the numbers. Thanks for watching this about tiny homes. Love to hear from you. You can leave a comment or you can contact me. I'm going to leave my number on the screen. Thanks so much again. Please subscribe to my channel and have a great day.